Welcome to Zion National Park in Utah. My name is Kristen and I will be your geological guide as we visit this park in the beautiful Southwest. The area spans 229.1 square miles and is located along the edge of the Colorado Plateau. Here is a satellite image of Zion using Google Earth. As you can see, the area is very rugged. And here is a map showing Zion in relation to Bryce Canyon National Park and the Grand Canyon. This relationship is important because the uplifting, tilting, and erosion of rock layers form what is known as the Grand Staircase that stretches from Bryce Canyon through Zion to the Grand Canyon as a series of very colorful cliffs. What winds up happening is that the layer of rock at the bottom of Bryce Canyon is the top layer at Zion. And interestingly enough, the bottom layer at Zion is the top layer of the Grand Canyon. Zion National Park has a semi-arid climate and is famous for a range of weather conditions. Temperatures vary with elevation. It is host to a variety of birds, mammals, reptiles, fish, and amphibian species that live in one of four life zones that include desert, riparian, coniferous forests, and woodland habitats. This is an image of Taylor Creek with Horse Ranch Mountain in the background here, and we can actually see all four life zones represented. Now let's take a look at Zion's rock types. The great majority of the rocks we'll find are sedimentary and have been formed by geological processes such as weathering, erosion, and deposition. Based on the principle of superposition, we know that the oldest rocks are on the bottom, and these layers get younger as we move to the top. We can actually see clearly here the principle of original horizontality in all these beautiful visible layers. Here's a nice profile of the 9 rock layers we'll find throughout the park. There's an abundance of Navajo sandstone exposed that make up the majestic cliffs the park is so famous for. It is, of course, composed of sandstone. Take a look at this beautiful cross bedding in the Navajo sandstone. The diagonal pattern preserves the wind pattern as it whooshed over sand dunes from the Jurassic period in what was our planet's largest sand desert. Its thickness reaches over 2,000 feet in some of Zion's cliffs. It is red at the bottom and white at the top due to iron oxidation. Some of the other types of rocks that we'll find throughout the park include limestone, siltstone, mudstone, shale, and gypsum, and conglomerate. There's an abundance of marine and dinosaur trackway fossils found here. More on all that later. Each of the different layers have their own unique composition and represent different time periods and environments in which they were deposited. Aside from the beautiful red sandstone cliffs that attract millions of visitors each year to Utah's first national park, Zion is known to be a spiritual refuge for many people. In fact, many of the names of the park's features reflect that. Although indigenous peoples inhabited the area prior to the Latter-day Saints who came in the mid-1800s, Zion is the name that stuck and that we use today. Let's explore just a few of the park's features. This is Checkerboard Mesa. Here we see cross-bedding, but not only that, we also find vertical cracks formed from large fluctuations in temperature. This is a picture of the Narrows, which offers geological insight into the area's history. Although Zion is considered arid, it wasn't always that way. It was once near sea level, but then the Colorado Plateau was uplifted over 8,000 feet in elevation, and that process is still happening today. Virgin River has a natural tendency to try and reach sea level. So it slices down through the rock and has carved the canyon. The Narrows is 16 miles long and gets as narrow as 20 feet wide. Notice the cobble-sized class here on the canyon floor. The Virgin River transports about 1 million tons of rock debris each year. One park keeper referred to the Narrows as God's private chambers within Zion. The park was named after the city of God. Here is the Great White Throne, a mesa composed of white sandstone and rises 2,350 feet from the canyon floor. Another popular attraction is Angel's Landing, which is a 1,488-foot Navajo sandstone monolith. It is a joint-controlled resistant fin from the Jurassic era. It got its name from one observer who claimed only an angel could land there. And finally in our tour, but certainly not the last of the many, many marvels of Zion National Park, is the Court of the Patriarchs. It's almost all Navajo sandstone and is nearly 2,000 feet. It got its name in 1916 when a Methodist minister named it after the biblical 3 generations of Israelites, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These cliffs are visible from almost everywhere in the valley. The 4 main geologic processes responsible for this beautiful area include sedimentation, lithification, uplift, and erosion, represented in these pictures. These all started around 240 million years ago and continue today. In its earliest days, Zion was a flat basin that streams carried loose clasts from nearby eroding mountains and deposited them as layers. The weight caused the basin to sink, but the top layer consistently remained at sea level. The climate changed and the land rose and fell so that the environment changed from shallow seas to coastal plains to a desert of massive windblown sand, according to the National Park Service. This is the process of sedimentation. Iron oxide, calcium carbonate, and silica in the water washed over the sediments and lithified the layers into stone. Then, through tectonic forces deep within the earth, the surface started to uplift to the point that Zion's elevation rose from sea level to nearly 10,000 feet. A modern time expression of this occurred in 1992 when, in the form of a 5.8 magnitude earthquake that caused a landslide in Springdale, just outside the park's south entrance. As we touched on when we explored the Narrows, the uplifted earth gave more force to the streams as they searched for sea level. They tumbled off the steep Colorado Plateau and carried large amounts of sediment. The streams eroded and cut into the rock layers that form what we see in the deep, narrow canyons. The Virgin River is still hard at work as it continues to widen the canyons. Let's revisit our profile of the 9 rock layers because they help tell the geological history of the park. The Kaibab Formation, so we're working from the bottom up to the top, and these represent them in order. The Kaibab Formation is formed 270 million years ago during the early Permian period. It's only exposed in a small corner of the Kolob Canyons, but consists of marine limestone and siltstone and represents the time when this area had a shallow tropical sea and coastal flats. Marine fossils such as trilobites and ammonites can be found. The next layer is from the early Middle Triassic period, 240 to 250 million years ago. It's called the Moenkopi Formation. It has thin layers of mudstone, siltstone, and sandstone. There's some limestone. Ripple marks leave evidence that the rivers were slow moving. This formation preserves footprints from early reptiles and amphibians. The Chile Formation, from the late Triassic period in 210 to 225 million years ago, overlays the Moenkopi and has mudstone, siltstone, sandstone, and conglomerate. Is divided into 2 portions. The lower one, the Shinnerup, has deposits of clasts indicative of high energy braided rivers, whereas the upper petrified forest member portion has a composition of clasts deposited in lower energy meandering rivers. The next layer, called the Monavi Formation, was deposited during the late Triassic, early Jurassic period, 210 to 195 million years ago. Dinosaur footprints can be seen in these muddy, thin, reddish brown layers. The Cañada Formation from 195 to 185 million years ago during the early Jurassic period is composed of layers of pink and reddish brown sandstone and various colored mudstones that encase dinosaur tracks. This layer is in both the lower Zion Canyon and the Kolob Canyons. It's beneath the giant Navajo sandstones and includes the Springdale sandstone as a subunit. The dominant Navajo sandstone is from the early Jurassic period, 185 to 180 million years ago. Its thick layers feature cross-bedding and records the history of this area being covered with sand dunes. During the middle Jurassic period, 175 to 170 million years ago, there was an incursion of a shallow inland sea, and the temple cap made of sandstone and a layer of mudstone was deposited over the Navajo sandstone. It leaves evidence that the environment became coastal. And finally, the youngest of these layers is the Carmel Formation from the Middle Jurassic period, 170 to 165 million years ago. It was deposited in a shallow sea environment and it contained marine fossils in its limestone. It also has mudstone, sandstone, and gypsum. Much of it has eroded away into the sea. In conclusion, Zion National Park, a place of refuge for humans and wildlife, offers awe-inspiring canyon country and some of the world's most beautiful sandstone cliffs. Its geological record gives insight into the powerful forces at work in creating sedimentary layers. Spending time in this majestic park persuades us to practice mindfulness and appreciate our place in this incredible world.